Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I have a very special guest, a friend of mine. We haven't been on for a while. So basically, we'll be catching up in the middle of the radio show in many respects. He's a very talented radio talk show host, political pundit, and just a very intelligent person. And he's also extremely funny. His name is Charles Butler, and he's mostly conservative, I would say. We differ only on very few issues. And he seems to know everyone. He even knows Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. He can maybe tell us a little bit about that. But turning to this monologue, if you want to call it that, what I want to discuss today is what's been happening to President Trump in New York with these two ultra-leftist judges, Aragon and Lewis Kaplan, a real abortion of justice in many ways. We're going to talk about illegal immigration. We're going to talk about January 6th. We're going to talk about Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. And this FBI agent who was an informant who's recently been indicted. I'm very skeptical that the guy was indicted properly. Now the Democrats are saying he's part of Russian intelligence. Of course, that's their play. That's their game. We're going to talk about the 2024 elections and who's likely to be running for president on the Democratic side. And let's also talk about the death of Alexei Navalny in Russia by Putin, thought to be by Putin. Biden has just put on 500 sanctions. Of course, his last rounds of sanctions wound up shooting the United States in the foot and created a new world currency called the BRICS, which is now threatening the dollar. So sanctions have never worked. They've only worked once when the entire world did it with regard to South Africa. Otherwise, they've been entirely counterproductive and harmful. So let me start with Trump and ask Charles. Everybody knows my views on what's been going on with these two corrupt judges in New York, with some crazy woman who 40 years after the fact finally remembered that she had been, quote, raped by Donald Trump. And now Trump's stuck with an $85 million judgment. And then this other judge, Aragon, who I always confuse with the president of Turkey. The only thing in common that they have is that they're both terrorists who have hit President Trump for about $500 million. Charles, give me your thoughts on this.
Well, when you talk about the judge, Aragon, I've never seen, never witnessed, never read about, never watched a person that was so glad about being lawless. He said that Donald Trump committed fraud before they even started the trial. How can you get a fair trial from someone who already thinks you're guilty? I was very upset by that. And I thought that maybe I'd heard things wrong. The more the trial progressed and the outcome, I know that I hadn't. And I went back and I found the clips where he said Donald Trump had committed fraud. Now, and this is the other thing, Larry. This judge is totally ignorant. And people who follow the logic for the basis of the Trump fraud, saying that he valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. There are vacant lots 200 feet from Mar-a-Lago that are valued at $200 million. Nothing's on them. It's just a piece of land. So a tax assessment, the value of my home or your home or any piece of real estate is not valued at the tax assessment value. It's what the market will bear. It's called fair market value. It's only worth what someone will pay for it. Donald Trump didn't commit any crimes. We know that. I'm not going to rehash all that. I'm sure you have. The bank said Donald Trump didn't commit any crimes. So they don't want to hear that. But we decided that you committed a crime because you valued an $18 million property that we determined was that value because of taxes. It's just stupid.
Well, it's a very good point, Charles, because it's not President Trump who valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. That was the county of Palm Beach, their tax assessors. And there are governors on how quickly tax assessments can rise. So yeah, it's a complete sham. Aragon is, in my view, it's not that he's unintelligent. He knew what he was doing. And he is a leftist, ultra leftist. He wanted to destroy Trump. And now, of course, the prosecutor is threatening to attach and sell Trump's buildings before he even has an opportunity to post bonds. So the United States, people in the United States know what's going on. It's going to increase Trump's popularity, believe me. And this is something that's really interesting. And I want to get your perspective, because years ago, when I was fighting the Clintons, I was on a radio show in Detroit, Michigan, primarily Black audience. I like doing that, okay? I like to see what people are thinking from all spectra of our society. And one of the callers said, you know, I don't mind what Clinton's doing, because frankly, in this corrupt legal system, you got to do what you got to do, you know? And I thought there was some logic to that, even though I was fighting Clinton. I believe in the rule of law and everything else. But our legal system has become such a cesspool. And this is a good example of it. And I hope that it will serve as a catalyst.
But Larry, it's become a cesspool. It's become a cesspool because of Democrats and the Democrat Party. And when we look back, the invasion of these urban cities by Irish immigrants getting into the what do you call it? The government. You know, they pointed this out in that movie. Something about New York, Friends of New York, or I can't recall it right now. But it was about New York in the 1800s and the Irish getting into the political game from crime, and they brought that corruption right into American politics. It's been there since the 1830s in Boston, New York. Then it moved to Philly, Detroit, Chicago. The Democrat machine. They didn't say the Republican machine. It's the Democrat machine. And as I point out to my listeners when I was in Chicago on Black Urban Radio, it's not a Republican that has his foot on your neck in these urban cities. It's a Democrat. It's always been Democrats that have mistreated Blacks in these cities. It's always been Democrats that have held Black unemployment at a high level, held high crime, put drugs in our community, put lower schools, used school books in our community. And you go down there and vote for these people because what? You're a Democrat. I said, Black people have to be the stupidest group of people on the face of the earth. They are totally politically unsophisticated.
Yeah, well, we've got problems in all sectors of society. And of course, it's good you mentioned Chicago, because Chicago, a Democrat stronghold, is now bursting at the seams with illegal immigrants. Blacks, whites, you name it, are up in arms because money's,
Latinos.
You know, and these immigrants are getting all these benefits. Go to New York City, same thing. They got a credit card this week for $10,000.
I love it. You know why I love it, Larry? Because these people, they voted in New York. They voted de Blasio in. That city was clean. It was running well. It was run under Giuliani and even under Bloomberg. The city was running well. It was clean. It was safe. De Blasio turned it into a hellhole. The criminals started taking over the city again. And then under this buffoon you have there now, and I call him a buffoon, not because of his race, but because of his actions. He's nothing but a partying buffoon. All this guy does is party, and chase women. That's what they don't show on the TV. But I've heard these stories about Mayor Adams, and I can tell you this: that people are getting exactly what they deserve from these elected officials who continue to ruin their cities, whether it's Chicago, whether it's New York, Detroit, all of these major. Look at Los Angeles. They have a Black mayor. She's horrible.
Yeah, well, many cities in this country are in the same situation right now. And
but you can turn it around, Larry, and these people can turn this around if they want to. There's no reason for drugs to be in our communities. You know, I look at Chicago, for instance. There are no drugs in Lincoln Park. Why are there drugs in the south side of Chicago? Why are there drugs in the west side of Chicago? When these illegals come to Chicago, they don't settle in poor neighborhoods. They don't go to the south side. They don't go to the west side. They go to Rolling Meadows. They go to all of these upscale. How do they afford it? Who's paying for it? How do they get a leg up on people who have to work hard to move to Schaumburg or to move to Naperville, work hard all their lives. And these people just come here illegally and move into these neighborhoods, and their children are going to these neighborhoods. And the NGOs, I want to burn down every doggone NGO that I find, starting with Catholic Charities.
Well, this is, you've said a lot, and I have to agree with it, what's going on right now. It's good that you say it. I have the same criticism that I make frequently of the Marxian Jewish left. You can do it with blacks. Okay, so nobody can accuse us of being racists here. But biggest threat to today, and you can see it on Capitol Hill, are the Adam Schiffs, the Gerald Nadlers, the Jamie Raskins, and the rest of them. And then you've got the leftist blacks and the leftists of every conceivable minority group that basically want to destroy this country and take it down to ground zero so they can take total control. And
well, I don't even think that blacks are even interested. The blacks in Congress, every last one of them, except for the Republican Johnson down here in Florida, put the rest of those people, as Joe Biden would call them, SOBs, I put them in the same category.
Well, let's come back and we'll pick it up at the end of the break, Charles. We'll be right back with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We're back with Charles Butler. He tells it like it is. That's why I love the guy. Everything's out there. No holds barred. The first time I ever listened to him, I was supposed to be on a show, but I couldn't hook up. And I was listening to him talk about what being an African American meant. And he says, it doesn't mean I want to go back to Africa. Tell him what you said, Charles. There was some humor to that.
Well, the bottom line is, it's a term that was created by Jesse Jackson in 1986. He and this lady named Dr. Edelman, who works in Philadelphia, I had a long talk and a long interview with her. And basically, there's very little thought that went behind this term, African American. I know very few people who like using that term. And I'm talking about very well-off blacks, very wealthy blacks, right down to the homeboys in the neighborhood. They don't like the term African Americans. Africans don't like us. We don't like them. They come here, they try to take over our programs. They talk to our countrymen and say, I'm not like those blacks. I'm not lazy. I don't want to be on welfare. And they think that we don't know what they're doing. They come from Ghana. They come from Kenya. They come from Nigeria. And I say, take your black ass back. And I mean it. We built this country. Black Americans built this damn country along with white Americans. And, we cleared the fields. We nursed the children. We went through slavery, went through Reconstruction, fought a civil war. And these people had nothing to do with that. Like a couple of days ago, there was a guy talking about reparations. And he had this whole big thing about reparations and how it was justified. And then, because he's a descendant of Haitians, well, there were Haitians that fought in the American Revolution. Dude, then let Haiti get them reparations. Don't put that on us. You're not one of us. It's like the Jamaicans who come. It's like, you ever think about this, Larry? Harry Belafonte. He always claimed to be from. I was a little boy. I used to ask my parents about this, but my parents weren't educated. They weren't that deep. But I always thought about these things. So you had Harry Belafonte on TV in the 50s going, Calypso rock, Calypso D, Calypso. He was one of the few blacks that was on TV. Oh, Calypso, Calypso. And so he said, the boys on the island used to tease him because, they didn't sing like that. They didn't act like that. And so I'm like, when did this guy become an American? Was he born in America? How did he get, he has this connection to the Caribbean. I mean, what is he? Is he Barbadian? Like Eric Holder says, Obama's former cabinet member always said Barack didn't have any blacks in his first cabinet. People say, well, what about Eric Holder? I said, so I'll play a clip of Eric Holder saying, my father was from Barbados. I'm a Bayesian American. I know nothing about the Black American experience, even though my black ass was born in Brooklyn.
When we were talking about, when you were talking about this and I was listening to you, you didn't know I was on the line because you were trying to hook me up as your guest. You said, I'm not an African American, I'm an American. Do you think I want to live in that expletive deleted?
Well, it's true. And you know, my family's been here for generations, and it's a disgrace to them to talk this African. So I was in Africa in 2008 at this big conference. It's a big trade conference, and they had the presidents and the ministers of various agencies at this meeting. So I walk up to a group of black guys who are from Africa, obviously, and hey, how you doing? Hey, brother, this is how they talk to me. Hey, brother, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. I said, this is not my home. So they all kind of look, because you know they get these prim and proper blacks over there who are, oh yes, I'm in touch with I want to get in touch with my African roots. See, I'm like, dude, I don't know nothing about you. You know, I'm an American. So these happen to be, one was the minister of one was the president of Mali. The rest were ministers of various organizations, you know, communications, this, that, and the other. And so they said, well, whoa, no, brother, this is your home. This is your home. I said, well, okay, so tell me what country I'm from. And they kind of looked at me. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you, let me give you one better. Tell me what tribe I'm from. And they looked at each other and they said, okay, you win. Because see, what Westerners don't understand, and they will never understand, because we look at ourselves as Americans. We don't look at ourselves as clans. Even though we may live in Michigan, we don't look at ourselves totally as Michiganders. We look at ourselves, we are citizens of the United States of America.
Charles, we got 10 seconds. This up.
These people have clans. Anyway, I'll finish it.
We'll be right back with the longest segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Stay tuned. Valuable information and good humor. We'll be right back. I'm back with Charles Butler. We were talking about his American roots, that he doesn't want to be called African American. I don't want to be called Jewish Christian American. Other people, if they truly are patriotic, don't want to be called anything other than American. But of course, we live in a society which is identity politics. Everybody's pitted against everybody else. We're coming apart at the seams. And who has, of course, fomented that? It started with Obama, in my view. We'll get Charles's view. It continued on. Biden's been doing it right and left. He's told people, you know, in the last election that if you vote for anyone other than a black, then you're not black. That's what he told them. Of course, he's a moron, so no one really knows what he means at most points in time. But let's use it as a segue to discuss who is likely to be the Democrat nominee in the end. I've been predicting that either Biden will die of his own volition or his bad health, or he will be replaced. And I am predicting, and regrettably, and I don't tell people who to vote for because I run a nonprofit, but I'm predicting that Gavin Newsom will probably wind up being the next president of the United States, because the American people, not our supporters, not Charles's supporters, but people in this country are ill-informed generally. And that's what the show is about, to try to inform them. And they vote for someone who looks good, a young guy who's attractive or whatever. And I don't see, frankly, with all of Trump's problems, as much as I like President Trump, I don't see him getting elected with all these court cases and with some young white guy out there that people can gravitate to. But give me your thoughts, Charles.
Well, I don't think it'll be Gavin Newsom, one. And if it is, Larry, what I understand is that people are hip to Newsom's game. Newsom thinks that because he's good, he's supposed to be good looking, teeth are straight, you know, hair's in place, that somehow he's going to be president. He screwed up San Francisco, he screwed up California, and people are not buying in on it at all. And I can tell you this, if Gavin Newsom does get the nomination, he'll probably not make it. I'm sure there will be numerous attempts on his life. And the Secret Service, FBI, cannot defend against just the average Joe Blow going out there trying to kill this guy. People are not going to let that happen. I think Donald Trump will win the election. I don't think that these cases have a lot to do with electing him. I think the Supreme Court's going to come out on his side. He's going to stay on the ballots. People love Donald Trump. They don't like Donald Trump. You hear people say, I can honestly say I've never said I loved any politician before Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump. And I love him because he's a true American. He's a man. He's a real man. And yeah, he grabbed him by the bush or whatever. He's a real man. He ain't doing nothing that nobody else wouldn't do. I mean, come on, give me a break. You know, we got too many girly men in America today. And that's the problem with our country. We have too many girly men. Oh, you let the woman take the lead. No, you're supposed to go out and pillage and be in control. We got too many sissies.
Go further.
Too many sissies today. Huh?
Let me say one thing before I go further. You weren't advocating doing any harm to Gavin Newsom. You were pontificating what crazy people might do, but you
What
weren't.
crazy people will do. I think people are just that upset.
You're
No,
not.
I'm not advocating anything because see, I don't like Gavin Newsom.
Woman in the private parts either. So we'll make that clear.
Yeah,
but
well, you know, I mean, Trump is a rich man, and this is the thing that tickled me. They got wind of Trump being a regular at the Playboy Club, so all the reporters run to the Playboy Club to get a story on Donald Trump groping and raping. When they said no, Donald Trump was the biggest gentleman of everyone. He was and they dropped it like a hot potato.
Well,
because see,
sometimes he gets himself.
Go ahead.
You know, the humor that let Putin get the 33,000 Hillary emails that probably shouldn't have been said. That gave license to the Democrats, or saying, "Hey, I wouldn't have raped her. She isn't good looking enough for me to bother with." That probably isn't a wise remark either.
But you know what? It's true. It's true. It's like I remember. See, I told you we have too many girly men. We have too many women that are involved in our business. Instead of making these women measure up to the masculine America, we've allowed us to be feminized. And I don't care what people say.
Right,
women are weak. Women are weak. When they look at what's her name? What's her name? Haley.
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley. Look at this chick. She was crying the other day. How's she gonna stand up to Putin? She cried. My husband. Give me a dick. Give me a break. These American women are not ready to stand up to any kind of pressure. See, and I, Larry, as an individual, as a man and a type A man, I don't take any smack off no smart woman. A woman cannot be smart with me. I will make her cry. Don't mess with me. See, but most of these men today, they let these women get away with being smart aleckly, and I don't play that. Homie, don't play that. Don't play with me. Because at the end of the day, if you want to get in the kitchen, you can get in the kitchen. Let's see if you can stand the heat. I want you to jump in the ring with me so I can beat you to death. Not to death. I mean, I don't play.
Okay.
I mean, and you know what? And you know what, Larry? You know what, Larry? This is the other thing about that. You find women out there who feel the same way about American men, that they're too soft with these women. These American women are too aggressive. They have nothing to back it up but a lot of mouth.
Take it down to a level that most people can agree with, regardless of your humor, and you are a comedian. The fact is, yes, you're right. Men have become feminized. There's no question about it. And that doesn't mean that women shouldn't be treated with respect. And it doesn't mean that you don't give them the benefit of the doubt.
You don't give them the benefit of the doubt. You do not treat them just like a man. And they want to be like a man, you treat them like a man. And let's segue here, Larry, because that's a good point. Right now, these liberals are getting exactly what they say. These women run around talking about we're your equal. We can be in combat. We can be soldiers. We can be firemen. We can be police officers. No, you can't. No, they give you a title, but you can't do the damn job. And you can't do it like a man does it. See,
I remember Daryl Gates. You remember him, the police?
Of course, LA police chief. Go ahead.
LA. So people criticized him and they said, "You're not hiring enough lesbians." And he said, "What are you talking about? I like to hire people with great upper body strength." So, what your point you're trying to make is that there's certain jobs that are more suited for men and others that are more suited for women. Combat, obviously, unless you don't have an option, as Israel doesn't, because of a lack of manpower.
Women are not in combat units with Israel. They're not assault troops.
That may be.
But they're not out there breaking down doors. They're not out there breaking down doors and going hand to hand with anyone.
Right. A man obviously has greater strength in combat and things like that. Women, tend to be more.
Let's not even break it to combat. Let's talk about these women on the street as cops. A woman on the remember that you were out in San Bernardino. You remember that beautiful sheriff that got beat up in September? This man beat her for like 45 minutes.
Remember that? No.
And he fired at her head 2 times and the gun misfired. You don't remember that, Larry? Well, you got to look it up. This guy, you know what she said? I gave him a lawful order to give me his arms. She couldn't take his arms. She couldn't take his arm and put it behind his back. Yeah, you can do that in training, but in the field, no.
That's what I'm saying, my good friend, is that you were making a point with humor, okay? And that, yes, there are certain things that men do better, certain things that women do better. I was listening to Dennis Prager the other day. I'm not a big fan of Dennis Prager, frankly. He's too sanctimonious. But he was pointing out that there have been a lot of studies that men and women think differently. Our brains are different. We process data differently. We are different. And of course, that current society with the so-called woke, which I think is a very bad name, I would call it perverted culture that we live in today, have basically erased all distinction between men and women. In the state of California, you can walk into a state registrar's office without any biological proof and claim that you're the opposite sex or no sex at all. And that is all part of an effort, in my opinion, to destroy Judeo-Christian values and our society and to take us down to ground zero, not just with regard to sexuality and identity, but also everything else that's going on that the left has fomented, whether it's criminality in our cities, whether it's open borders with drug traffickers, human traffickers, sex traffickers, terrorists running across, use of our Justice Department as a Gestapo to quell all dissent, whether it's J6 protesters or anyone else. The left is very smart. The devil is evil, but the devil is very smart. And they are taking our country down so they can then seize total control. And that's what they're going to try to do in the 2024 elections. Make no mistake about it, there'll be massive fraud as there was in the last election. And I just, regrettably, I do not see either Trump or Republican being elected. And that's why I tell my listeners and my supporters every single day, there's no political messiah. We have to do it for ourselves, peacefully and legally. And we've had our citizens' grand juries, our citizens' trials, our court cases. We have the right to protest peacefully. And we have a right also, if we are attacked, to use our Second Amendment rights of self-defense. But many people in this country, and this gets to your point about the feminization of men in particular, and that is true, is that most men are afraid. They don't want to stick their neck out. If they're making decent money or in their retirement age, they just want to ride it out. They don't care about their kids or grandkids and what's going to happen after that. And the country is living in a dream world as it's sinking faster than the Titanic. And, you touched on certain issues in a humorous way, but I'm kind of the straight man on the show today. And that's what I want people to consider, is that Charles raises a lot of issues with his humor, which ring true. There you are, brother. I just gave you an endorsement.
Well, illegal immigration. Barbara Jordan, who was a great American, she carried a copy of the Constitution in her purse. And Bill Clinton put her in charge of something called the Immigration Commission in 1994. And they took about 3 years to come to some interesting conclusions. It was the study was about 97 pages. I read the whole thing, and I read the executive summary numerous times. She was very clear on one thing. She said that the illegal immigration issue can be summarized in one sentence. And I found that to be very interesting, in that I was like, well, what is it? I mean, share it with us, enlighten us. And it was really simple. She said, those who should get in, and those who should leave are required to leave. I'm trying to open the file here. I'm not having any luck. But and those who should be deported are deported. It's very simple. And people keep trying to make a big deal of this thing. It's like the Senate bill The Senate bill was not a good bill in that it only gave the Senate enough money or money to add more agents to process illegals, not to and offer them amnesty, not to send them back home, not to what deport them, but to make things comfortable for the illegals. We're going to have a mass deportation. I just wrote an article about this. And my article says that we're going to have to be desensitized to pictures on TV of crying babies and their mothers being put on planes and trains and deported out of the country. Now, we're not talking about 100 million people. We're not talking about 1 million people. We're talking.
Let's take it up in the next segment, the verdict. I want to get your views on where you think the country is headed after I give you my views quickly, so you'll know where I'm coming from. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Charles Butler, my co-host today, and Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We're back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, fellow patriots, conservatives, libertarians, anyone who believes in the vision and creation of our founding fathers. You all know where I stand. I think the country's in serious trouble. It's on its back. We have to rise up. We cannot depend on the politicians to do the job of the American people. Our founding fathers did not depend upon King George and his yes men and yes women. Of course, there weren't yes women in those days because the women didn't have any rights. But the fact is that we have to do it for ourselves. And I think we're in serious trouble. We're in serious trouble because we have a president who's brain dead, who's a criminal. He's going to be removed. We're going to have somebody put in, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or someone else who's superficially maybe appealing to the majority of Americans. We're in trouble because there's going to be fraud in the next election. And the Republicans, frankly, are asleep at the switch. We're in trouble because the Republican Party basically is a party of fundraisers. It's a do-nothing party. When it gets power, frankly, all it does is pontificate and perpetuate that power. They're the reason that you have a Biden and you have a Kamala Harris, and the reason the country is in such deep, you know what, because they were not an opposition party and do not remain an opposition party. So, Charles, give me your thoughts on where this country is going and how we pull ourselves out of it. We've got about 4.5 minutes left.
Well, simply this, Larry. I think we just need to get Donald Trump back into office. Donald Trump, when he gets in office, he has to do three things. He has to purge the federal government of deep state operatives. That means fire these people, kick them out, let them appeal, but remove them from their jobs. 2, he needs to start mass deportations. 3, we need to open up the XL pipelines. We need to petition the rest of the world to shut off that pipeline in Russia that Biden opened up for Putin. Nobody talks about. Isn't that amazing how they don't talk about? Well, Trump shuts Putin down. He can't get the oil he needs to make money, and Putin gives him a lifeline and brags about it. Yeah, I threw Putin a lifeline, and nobody says anything. I mean, we're set with a mainstream media that is so anti-American. It's frightening. And it's not only, it's magazines, it's TV, it's the internet. These people are totally anti-American. I'm going to tell you something, Larry. I don't support sending money to corrupt Ukraine. Ukraine used money to pay pensions and to do a lot of other things than buy weapons and fight that war. The bottom line is they think we're suckers. Donald Trump's not a sucker. He cut them off. But Zelensky is a little slick, devious. He's probably piling away millions somewhere. So those are the things that I think need to be addressed. I think we should support Israel. I was having a vicious argument with an old friend of mine. We fell out. I don't know if he'll ever talk to me again. But I said Israel needs to kill every last one of those Hamas members. And if they hide among the Palestinians and the Palestinians won't kill them, then they all have to die together. The things that they did to those Jews or any group, any people, what they did to the women, putting objects in their genitals and then killing them. They need to be killed like the animals they are.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I agree with you on everything except Ukraine. We're stuck with Ukraine. We never should have had this invasion. Biden invited Putin in, but Putin does want to take care of Europe. What I will say is make the Europeans pay for it. Why do
The
we?
thing is this, Larry, exactly. When I say I don't support, if Europe is so doggone concerned about the Ukraine, they need to get up off the money.
That's right.
They need to get up off all the money. When you talk about NATO and whenever they say they're allied forces, there are no allied forces. It's the United States doing 90% of the work and the UK doing the other 10%. When they talk about NATO allied forces, there's no allied forces. It's America and the UK.
We're
That's
out of time. My good friend, we'll bring you back. Thank you for the enlightenment. Thank you for the humor. You got me to laugh today. I was not in a humorous mood, but you always do. And go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. We are your real Justice Department. Remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. Thank you for listening to Charles and me.